Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief. One thing I would like to say is that there's been an enormous amount of discussion about mothers and their role in raising children. I'm a father. And although my wife often does not want my opinion, I often give it anyway, and so I just wanted to make that. But the discussions we've had here today, I've been very impressed with the impressions that I've seen from all of you. And for me, I think this is very important. The attitude of in general, this is the 9th dialogue that I've attended, and the attitude of dialogue participants has evolved from more formal to less formal. And I'll say, this is the 2nd dialogue. Everybody's wearing suits and ties, and things are a little more casual now. But I think that it reflects a lot the way things are going. So the question that's been raised here is, how can I raise my children in Fukushima Prefecture? This is a difficult and subjective question that can't be answered generically. It's each person's choice. Each family living in or considering moving to or back to Fukushima Prefecture will need to answer this question. The answer will be a judgment made by each family based on their circumstances, and driven by their beliefs, their perceptions, and their understanding of the risks of that. So it's really a very individual issue. Health problems exist. General trends in Japan show decreasing physical activity in children and increasing occurrence of obesity. These trends in Fukushima Prefecture are more significant than in the rest of Japan. At least that's what I heard in these 2 days. The level of accident-related stress and anxiety in Fukushima Prefecture is significant and probably contributes to the health deterioration, particularly in children who are accident-related, meaning they're playing inside, they're not going outside, they're on their video games more often. I might say that my son in Paris and my daughter in Paris are on their video games all the time, so this is not just in Japan. Decisions to be taken. Surveys have suggested that those who have made decisions to stay or to go, either way, may have lower levels of anxiety. Such serious decisions are very difficult to make. And so the question is, what type of support is needed to make the decision to stay or to leave, to return or not to return? That's, I think, what's been coming up a lot. Mothers have been talking about what they've understood and how that has influenced the decisions to protect their children. So, elements to assist in making the decision. I think a lot of this has come out. There's need for information and data, assistance from experts, acceptance of views, and trust. I think that's probably the most important issue. Information so people can fear correctly. I thought that was an excellent phrase, because if you're living in a contaminated zone, there'll always be some concern, no matter how low the extra risk is. Health literacy is important, and that seems to be the basic knowledge of radiation risk measurement and protection, as well as other situational sort of aspects. However, it is difficult, if not impossible, for non-specialists to know what science is true and what science is false. As we said, you can find anything on the internet. You can find lots of stuff that's well done in the newspapers, but maybe it's not complete. So what can the average person who lives here, what can you do? This was talked about. Data is an essential element. It's important to learn the figures and data. Data needs to be local and trusted, and many people in Fukushima have learned and use radiological risk management concepts and numbers. So the numbers, while certainly not driving your decision, are important to allow you to make decisions and are part of the elements. But neither comfort or uneasiness can be expressed numerically. I think the choice and the way you feel about making a choice is a feeling, it's not a number. And so I think that was something that you need the numbers, but they're not drivers. Assistance, roles of radiation protection experts, so people like us and people like the professors in the universities, and even, I hesitate to say, government officials. Listen to those affected by the Fukushima Daiichi accident, adults and children. People said that there was an emphasis on listening to children, because they have a lot of understanding of what's going on. That will help you to appropriately understand the concerns, to express the radiation protection system and radiological data in plain language that is understandable. Millisieverts, becquerels, grays, all that can be quite confusing. It is for me sometimes. Do this in a way to express, to address the stakeholders' concern. And explain the science underlying the situation, because that's also important. Propose support that best addresses the stakeholder concerns. What you care about is what we should be helping with. Provide appropriate training and financial resources to support your decisions. If you need to make measurements or detectors or get things set up, that needs to be supplied somehow by the experts and by the system. There are many different views. Based on the collected data and acquired understanding, stakeholders will make decisions concerning family protection. And any decision to stay or to go, to return or to not return, is a valid decision. There's been a lot of discussion about discrimination. People should not be discriminated against for making a decision. It's a personal decision, and it can go right or it can go left. Either is valid. Trusted sources are essential to accepted and sustainable decisions. In order to appropriately understand and use data, its source must be trusted. That's something that everybody said again and again. Trusted sources are open to discussion and to listening. They're transparent. They're accommodating of stakeholders' needs. And they're interested in stakeholder local knowledge. Gaining sufficient knowledge. Moving forward is dependent on collecting data and measurements, identifying trusted sources of information and expertise that can provide factual information and appropriate training. Partnerships with experts and stakeholders, even perhaps the government, will assist in the implementation of your decision. In summary, people need better understanding scientific-specific aspects of their particular situation before they can make the best decisions to protect themselves and their families. Fortunately, people know their concern. You all expressed clearly during these 2 days what you're concerned about, what are your issues. And in fact, you also have good ideas as to what might be the best ways to address your concern and approaches that you might take to make your lives better. But to do this, people need support to gain sufficient understanding of what's going on. And so, I'll say, taking decisions is a difficult process, and it's often a step into the unknown. But taking decisions has an element of hope in the future. And somebody said, what used to be normal, I now think of as precious. And that's been said in a different way by several people, in the sense that the unfortunate accident has brought the value of life as we know it much more closely to the forefront. It's what we used to do, what we used to think of as just what we used to not think about is now something we really want to achieve and sustain. So what we said is, to help with that, parents, teachers, and children need to share hope. The people have talked about their children mimicking what they do and taking their spirit from their parents. Well, I think that's probably true. And if we all hope that the future will be better, no matter what the decision, to stay or to go, then once you've taken that decision, hope that everything will be better and your life will be improved. And that is, I think, what I took from this wonderful 2 days of discussion. Thank you.
Good day. I think that this applause should be done for both, and also yesterday for Jean-François. I think the rapporteurs, they give a vision about the dialogue, which is maybe biased, but because we are not living here in Fukushima, and we cannot feel things as we feel them, but this is what has been said is how we feel what you said. Well, I think after these two presentations, I don't need to do any type of summary. I will really say a few words just for closing the meeting. For me, it was a very rich meeting. We tackled a very complex issue. I was not so aware about how complex it was until today. You know, when we decided last time, when we were in Minamisoma, that the next dialogue would be on raising children in Fukushima, I thought it would be something relatively easy to tackle. But in fact, it's a real complex issue. There are so many questions that have been raised by you. And there is no clear and definitive response, but you open a lot of doors or a lot of windows. I think it's very interesting. You know, the topic was on raising children, and clearly there is a concern about the health, the future health of children. You expressed that clearly. But I think this is a universal aspect. I mean, everywhere in the world there is a concern about the health of children. And we heard that mothers are on the front line. But this is also universal. Everywhere in the world, mothers are on the front line. I remember working after Chernobyl in Belarus during many, many years. Mothers were on the front line. It took a long time before fathers came to meetings, and I'm very pleased that you came here and you made very strong statements. I mean, it is obvious that mothers and also women are more concerned. It's not because fathers are neglecting their children, it's just because they have another view of life, maybe, I don't know, it's so philosophical question, I don't want to expand on that. But as mothers are on the front line, it is clear that they need to be supported. And there was a clear request from some of you that some mothers, there are some particular situations where mothers need to be supported. And of course there is this question of teaching, education, learning, and this is not only for children, this is also for the parents. I mean, we live with radiation. It was said, since man is on this planet, he is living with radiation. We are not very aware about it. Apart experts and scientists, we are not really aware we live with radiation. And unfortunately, the accident in Fukushima, like more than 20 years ago in Chernobyl, suddenly for a large population, they live with radiation. Suddenly, they live with radiation. And the issue is to tame the radiation. As it was said, it's like the fire or anything, it's a matter of dose. There is a moment where there are too much water, there is a moment where there is too much fire, and there is a moment where there is too much radiation. So how to tame that? We know how to master and how to tame the fire. Now we have to learn how to tame radiation. And I think there was a lot of good ideas that have been presented during the dialogue. Of course, there is the scientific approach about radiation. It's important to base actions on solid scientific basis, what is right. But there is also a practical approach about radiation. I mean, people from Fukushima, they don't need to become scientists and experts of radiation. They have something else to do. They have many, many other things to do. So they have to gain a practical approach of radiation. And there are already a lot of good examples in the prefecture of people who have gained this practical knowledge to behave on a day-to-day basis, being aware about what is important, not important, the few measurements to be done from time to time to reassure oneself and so on. So I think there was a lot of good things said today. And there is also a point that was raised at the end of this dialogue, the fact that we have been focused mainly on small children, you know, the problem of having children, giving the birth of new children and all the care around young children. But there are also the junior high school, I mean the adolescent, those who very soon, in a few years, they will be the strength of the prefecture. And they need also education, learning, they need also to be supported. And above all, I think the key word is they have not to be ashamed to come from Fukushima. I mean, I've learned that in Belarus, there is a point where among the population, among the young people, there is a turning point where people don't think anymore, oh, I am someone from Chernobyl, I am someone from Fukushima. And I have to hide myself. I don't want to tell that to my neighbors or the people, and when I go outside, I don't want to say that. But there is a point where people discover that they have something more than the others. And that what was a shame become a pride. A pride to master things that the others don't know. And I think this is a very important point. And I think I have the feeling that you are slowly coming to this point all together. When I say all together, this is the authorities, the experts, the medical doctors, the teachers, but also all the population, the young people and the students. I mean, of course, there are a lot of problems, still a lot of problems. And there is one lesson, I will finish by that, there is one lesson from the ICRP point of view. We were fully aware that by developing protecting actions after an accident, these protective actions can have negative consequences themselves. To be protected, you develop bad consequences. And we were fully aware about decontamination. Decontamination is very good to get out the radiation, but you create a lot of waste and there are a lot of problems. It costs a lot of money and it's a long process. So there are difficulties with decontamination. I was not fully aware on one aspect that was clearly mentioned here during 2 days is this question of to protect children, and particularly young children. The idea has been to try to restrict as much as possible the time they spend outdoors. I mean, this is really something that is, I would say, very present here in Fukushima. I was not aware about that because it was absolutely not the case around Chernobyl. Children were playing around, even going in the forest, and I often saw kids coming back from the forest, you know, with having eaten berries, and they were still, you know, red ends and so on. Of course, we had to teach these kids not to do that anymore, but they were more in some sort of freedom, and they had to also to learn how to tame the radiation, how to maybe do some measurements about the places with the parents about the places, but it was not, you know, from the outside. They were already outside when they started this process of better protecting themselves. But here, I see that this natural attitude of protecting the kids and say, oh, don't go outside, don't touch the trees, don't go in the sand, don't do this, don't go in the river, has created a lot of problems. And I think we will have to be aware in our future recommendations to clearly say that, okay, these are means to protect people, but you have to look at the negative side. And when you see, when you listen to, I was listening to you during these 2 days and said, wow, maybe we have to be more clear about the negative effects of what we are proposing to protect people. So, okay, so that was something, you know, we learn also as ICRP members, and I turn my face to my colleagues, we learn a lot by having these dialogues with you. But these are basically your dialogues, and this dialogue was excellent, very rich. Thank you. I will start to thank all of you first for staying there during 2 days. I'd like to thank the observers. They have been very silent as observers, but I hope that I could say enjoyed being there for 2 days. I would like also to thank the speakers. They made excellent presentations, such a large diversity, and it's a fantastic material now to think about it. And I would like to thank once again the rapporteurs and Ted. I would like to thank our two interpreters, Mrs. Hirano and Machida. I told you that the first day at the opening. Without them, there is impossible. Dialogue is impossible. And I'd like to thank Professor Niwa Sensei. I mean, he made a tremendous work to build this program. You have been so responsive to his solicitations that I think he is applauded with you, because I think without you, he would have been able to do the program. Then I would finish my list of thanks by a great thank to the municipality of Date, and particularly to Mayor Nishida. You know, he can play. And of course, this is on my list. This is Mayor Nishida and Mr. Anzawa. Without them, these dialogues wouldn't be really successful as they are. Well, thank you very much once again to all of you. Maybe the idea to have a dialogue on junior high school, maybe this is an idea to be explored. This was raised yesterday first, and today this came back. And you said clearly as a mother, you said a really important point concerning your older son, and I think we have to work on that. It's maybe a good topic for a future dialogue, and in that case, I hope you will be back again with us. Okay, thank you very much. Have a safe trip back home, and hopefully to see you in a future dialogue by the end of the year or next spring, when we will organize the next dialogue. Bye-bye, and thank you very much.